Hey, welcome to The Sinner and the Saint. I'm Melissa Bell.
And I'm Allison Kane.
You know, last week we talked about what the world gets wrong.
Yes.
And here's something that the world gets wrong, particularly for Christians. Drinking.
Oh. Yeah.
Yes. So, if you're a Baptist, you definitely don't drink in public. And you're not seen drinking, from what I understand, coming from someone that's not really been in the church all of her
Probably
life.
depends on what church. Baptist church might be different within the Baptist church.
And they will, like, some Christians feel ashamed to have a glass of wine.
Yes.
And if you're in a very legalistic Christian circle, they will shame you for having a drink.
It is true.
Yeah.
Yes. But the Bible actually doesn't say don't drink. In fact, there's a space where Paul reminds somebody, I have to look it up, don't forget to have a little glass of wine every night for your stomach.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was Jesus' first miracle. He turned water to wine, so obviously he's not opposed to it. But it does say don't get drunk.
Right, and there's a big difference.
Big difference. So it's interesting. I was in Ephesians recently, and it was talking about don't drink too much wine. It cheapens your life. Drink the Spirit of God instead. Sing hymns instead of drinking songs. This is obviously the Message translation.
It says sing hymns instead of drinking songs?
Yes, don't you love the Message?
99 verses of Psalms on the wall, 99 verses of Psalms.
That's awesome. Sing songs from your heart to Christ. Sing praises over everything. Any excuse for a song to God, our Father, in the name of our Master Jesus Christ. But then it follows up with, don't live carelessly, unthinkingly. Make sure you understand what the Master wants. And I love that, because when we are, obviously if you have too much wine, you're not really thinking of the Spirit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You might be feeling like you're dancing in the Spirit.
Yeah, but you're probably not.
Probably not.
But if you're drinking in the Spirit of God, then certainly it is going to make us more aware of where we are living carelessly and not thinking properly, right? And keeping us more eyes focused on God and what He wants instead of what we want.
Yeah, there are so many layers to that, especially when it's around the drinking part for me. I think drinking is such a commonplace thing now. You can go anywhere, and I remember when I was young, which was a long time ago, you were a private drinker, meaning if someone saw your dad at the bar, even if you weren't in church, because we weren't in church, that was kind of shameful.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, oh, I saw your dad at the bar, kind of thing. And now, people throw their babies in baby carriers and hang out
at the brewery.
Right. And so I just feel like it's interesting, just an interesting concept. For me, I like to keep tabs on my drinking. I'm always very aware, just because of the addictions that are in my family, that I never want it to be something that I need to do.
Right.
And oftentimes, if I'm grabbing a drink, I'm trying to be aware of why. So what is the purpose of grabbing that drink? Is it to just sit down and relax? That also shouldn't be a reason, right?
Right.
Or is it because I feel so overwhelmed that I'm trying to avoid a feeling?
Sometimes.
Lots of times.
So this is an interesting topic. I hope we don't offend people, but we might, it's how we are. Well, it's like these alcoholic waters. They call them mom waters.
What?
I know.
I don't know about this.
Okay, so apparently there are these drinks now that it's water, flavored water, and there's alcohol in it, but you don't taste the alcohol. Or I don't think it's sparkling. I think it's still. I think it's both. But they call them mom waters. And I'm like, okay, first of all, if I'm going to be drinking water, I'm just going to drink water. If I'm having a glass of wine, it's because I enjoy the taste of the red wine with my meal. That kind of thing. I'm not just going to drink a water to get a buzz.
Right.
I think that's interesting.
That's actually terrifying to me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of popular with kids.
Yeah, where do they sell them?
I think the grocery stores?
Weird.
Maybe not. Maybe they can't sell them at the grocery stores because there's liquor. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you have to get them at the liquor store. I don't know. I don't drink liquor.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So under the influence is what you were talking about. Or, I think in our life, we all are being influenced by something, someone. But if you're not aware of it, then next thing you know, you wake up and you don't even know who you are anymore.
It's so true. I mean, so let's talk about what are the things that we can be under the influence of besides, and we're not talking about drinking
illicit drugs, right?
Other than the Spirit, the things, it can be social status.
Mm-hmm. It can be your friend group is definitely, you're under their influence if you're a follower for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even if you're not a follower, like we said before, you become like the 5 people you hang around with the most. So whether you know it or not, you are being influenced by them.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, good point. I think you can be influenced by, I was going to say your church, which can be good.
Right.
But it can also, I know this is a tricky one. Depending on your church, it can also be a slippery slope if it's a little bit if it's not as scripture based.
Right.
It can lead us astray if your church isn't biblically sound.
This is when fact checking is good, guys. Okay, we need the fact checkers in the church.
Yes.
You should be your own fact checker.
That's why it's so important to read the Word of God.
Yeah.
Don't just listen. Don't just, take everything at face value. Open your own Bible and read it. Double check those people.
Yeah. Double check us.
Yeah.
Please?
100%.
Yeah, because we are not perfect. We are so far from perfect. Here's the other thing. We all joke, and we know that our phones listen to us, and we know that if we clicked on, a pair of shoes, that we'll see advertisements for those shoes. Well, that happens in every arena in our lives on social media. So if someone posts, let's just say political, we're not going to get political here, but someone posts a political video, and maybe that video played on your phone because you got distracted by your child. Well, now social media believes that you are interested in that video, so you're going to you're going to think that 95% of the world is
whatever that was.
And so I think it's so important to just be aware that we are always being influenced and be intentional about what we are allowing into our lives.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I think we can, especially as parents, we can be influenced by when you've got kids in school and you see these other parents doing, whether it's trips, whether it's sports, whether it's PTA and volunteering at school or all the things, we can be under the influence of, I need to do this, my kid needs to do this. Someone said to me the other day that they told one of their children, well, we all have something that we do, so you need to figure out what yours is. And I love that, because we should all have a hobby or something that we focus on, but also giving people the freedom to figure out what that is, not pigeonholing them.
Right.
And I was very quick to say, well, it may not be sports.
Right.
And that's okay. Like, I never did sports in high school. Mm-hmm. I went to the Y and worked out, but I wasn't on a sports team. I turned out okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. It's questionable sometimes.
No, I think you're great.
So, just being careful how we're being influenced and how we want our kids to be perceived, our parenting, our marriages, things like that.
I think it's also interesting in conversation. If you're in a group of people, I'm not often in a group of people. That sounds really bad. But I'm not often in a group of people. I'm thinking about, those of you that have kids in school and you maybe are in a PTA or something like that. And a conversation, 4 people in your group of 5 are saying this, but you are thinking differently. Mm-hmm. Are you confident enough to speak up or at least walk away?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because that would be hard.
Yeah, that's hard.
I was talking to one of my older kids and they were saying it's really hard because, you're an adult, but you're not really in the adult stage of life yet. You don't have kids and a spouse and a career, but you're also not a kid. And, I raise old souls because I'm just an old curmudgeon. And so we're not really big on social media and that sort of thing. And they're allowed to be, but they were very real in our house, like, well, that's a bunch of crap kind of thing. And so it's kind of made it hard for them because so many people in their peer group are driven by social media.
Mm-hmm. I was in a situation recently where I had just met this family, but there was a situation with their 12-year-old daughter, and she does not have a phone, and they're waiting, which I think is amazing to wait. But of course, she's like the only kid without one, and she actually is. She's not just being dramatic about it. And she was at lunch with a couple of girls, and they were basically using their phones and not having conversations, and then taking pictures of her and making fun of her
that she didn't have a phone.
And for what and so it's just wow, the weapon that we all hold. I mean, we are walking around it's a weapon. Like, I get it, it's great, it's convenient, it's nice to be in touch, but I think if we could look at our phones and treat it with a little more reverence and respect, as if you were holding a pistol,
right?
Because it has a lot of power to hurt and to harm.
Yeah, so I'm with your friend. My 12-and-a-half-year-old just got a phone for the first time, but it's a flip phone, so he can play Tetris on it, I think. But because we're just not so involved in what the norm does, it's not quite as hard for him.
Right.
Right. Yeah. He had a Gizmo watch until like a week ago.
Well, there you go.
Which is for 5 and 6-year-olds and up to 12-year-olds. It was actually made for people up to 12, but that's not for them. It's not cool. So I feel for your friend.
And they're all different. We're not saying one's right or wrong. If your kid's 10 and they have a phone, I mean, I'm not judging where people fall on the spectrum. My point in this, or whatever your decision is, that's your choice as a parent. What I am saying is teaching our children and reminding ourselves, because I think we forget as adults sometimes how much influence and how much harm those phones can have.
Yeah.
Not just to ourselves, but to other people. Because when we're constantly under the influence of the things that we see on social media, that's a huge influence on people.
I mean, if I'm on that influence, I need to change all my decor every single season.
Yeah.
I need a lot of room for throw pillows and doormats and curtains.
Rugs. Mine's rugs. I must have searched for rugs one time. Yeah. So if we go back to these scriptures about don't live carelessly and recklessly and not think, where in your life do you feel like you may be a little careless and reckless?
Oh my gosh, where do we start? Honestly.
Like, what comes to mind when you're like, I should think more about this. I shouldn't be so careless with that.
So it's interesting. I could go a lot of places with this, especially this morning, but one of the first things to go in my routine is my self-preservation and self-care.
Yes, you are terrible.
I'm terrible at boundaries.
I mean, you are a good person and I love you, but I have to lecture you to take care of yourself.
Yeah, and I know that doesn't seem reckless, but at the end of the day, it is very reckless because it affects so many different places in my life. And it's funny because you did lecture me about that today, but I had already started lecturing myself this morning when I was getting ready because I feel like God was already pointing it out, so he just used you to echo. And so I think that's a thing. And also, I think reckless in really being intentional. I have tried to be intentional, and I do know that my life is very, very full right now. But just being more intentional with the people that matter. And I mean, everybody matters to a certain extent, but you know, you have your sprinkles, and then you have your downpours, and I need a downpour on people more that are that you know, pour into my life.
I would echo that for me as well. Like, I feel as if during this, you know, over the summer, I was savoring and squeezing out every bit of time with our son.
Yeah.
Before he went to college, and just let everything else kind of fall away unless it revolved around him. And, you know, also just sort of when things get in a swirl for me, I really turtle. That's what I call it.
I think it's great. Actually, I was just thinking I need to do that.
I just sort of have to, I just not shut down, but I kind of go inside with the Lord, and I try to figure these things out, and, you know, pull the rubber bands off the rubber band ball to see what's in the core, and, you know, all the things that have gotten wrapped up over time. So I feel, then I will feel guilty about not being more present, not sending the card that I thought I should, when usually I'm so good about the follow through, but I'm letting all that go. I think where I think I'm more reckless with myself. I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
That's where I'm careless with myself. Because I'm such a good critic of myself. Wow. I mean, like, number one, probably. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else out there that
I'm actually,
that I just don't know about.
So it's funny you're saying that, because I think I'm a critic of myself, but I mask it differently. Here's an example. Super busy. We've had 2 very long unexpected hospitalizations with my dad. And my immediate response when I get home is to feel inadequate and feel like I need to prep all the food, not only just like have all the shopping done. I did 3 grocery store runs yesterday. I prepped 2 meals, and I baked goods. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
But I also thought, oh my gosh, I probably need to help these people and make them meals. Well, thank God I talked myself out of that. But the truth is,
not that she doesn't love whoever you are, but
right.
She had enough on her plate.
And I had to call people and go, this is what I think I'm going to do. And my husband's like, no, that's not what you're going to do. So I think it's because I'm critical of myself that I feel like I always have to show up and represent that I'm not what I feel like I am, which is inadequate or not worthy or
That's
whatever.
performing.
Yeah. So I'm performing for even my own family that doesn't like, they're like, Mom, go take a nap.
Yeah, please.
I went to the grocery store and I bought brownies and 4 types of cookies and 2 types of muffins to make. Now, that's a step down from me normally making it all from scratch. I bought the packet. So I already had a little ding in my armor because I was buying a packet.
Oh.
That's where I am.
Wow. Yeah.
So
I used to be the performer. Now I'm just the hard on myself because I don't do any of those things, and I think I'm still transitioning. So I'm like, but it's getting easier.
My favorite conversation was, I'm not cooking dinner anymore. I don't know. I think my response to my face was a lot. I was like, what?
Yeah, your face, it was priceless for sure.
Yeah. So I think that I don't allow myself to say I'm criticizing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
You are. You're covering it up.
Yeah. So how many of you? I'm thinking 2 out of 2.
Yeah.
So who feels inadequate out there today, every day? And how are you hiding?
Mm-hmm. I think another area where I'm careless and unthinking is in my words. Because when I'm frazzled or whatever, or frustrated, you know, my words are my little tea kettle.
Uh-huh.
And I really want to be more intentional, like I mentioned last week, with my words. I want them to be good words always. Positive words. And even when it's a hard conversation and not a fun conversation, I want it to be constructive. Because some things aren't great to talk about, but you need to talk about them.
Yeah.
I want my words to be intentional, and I also want my words to be fewer.
I feel that
and
in my
more
bones too.
listening.
Yes.
You know, I'm having a hard time. I have a hard time transitioning from people are kind of always asking for advice, and we speak a lot, obviously, and it's sort of what people look to for each of us to do. So I feel like I'm always in that mode.
Right.
And I need to turn that. I need to work on my switch where I can, sometimes that's appropriate and that's the job for the day or the time or the lunch or the whatever. And then other times it's to turn that off and
ask questions.
Just ask questions and just listen.
Yeah.
That is my intention for, I gotta get better with my switches.
Okay.
So help me.
Huh. If I find my switch, I'll let you know where it's at.
Okay. If you have any tips on how you do that, how you turn your listening ears on, for lack of a better kindergarten, more adult term, if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them, or any advice for me.
I love that. I do know that I've had a lot of hard conversations, and to not get into that mode, I have a few questions that are very general that I can ask.
Mm-hmm.
That'll at least shut my mouth for a little bit. Normally it's, well, how do you feel about that?
Right.
Which or I'll say,
tell me more about that.
Tell me more about that. Or I'll say, particularly with, my relationship with my dad right now, I'm like, this is what I think about it. But at the end of the day, this is your life. So I need you to make a decision on that. And I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That's not really a question, but it kind of like shuts me down to go to say, this is his life, not your life.
Right. You're saying it for yourself
right.
more than him. Another good thing that I'm trying to do is after people share something, we don't like silence, usually. We feel as if they stop sharing that we're supposed to talk, or, we want to fill that space. And so I will say out loud, sit with that for a minute. And then it's almost as if saying those words gives everybody permission just to be quiet for a few minutes. Think about that more. Sit with that for a minute. And then just be silent for a little bit and say, did anything else come to mind about that?
There's a group of us that are trying to do a salt cave coming up, and I'm just laughing because I think, number one, if we could all just sit in there, if we sat quietly, all the things that God would bring to our minds, right? And all the growth that we could do in our hearts. But I know the group of us will probably just chitty chat through the whole thing.
You could have designated quiet times. All right. So food for thought this week, maybe. We just kind of wanted to take a break for a couple of weeks on very specific topics
and just talk about what's going on in our lives and what we're working through, right?
Yes, and just kind of model what it looks like to talk that through with your friends, what it looks like to share the things that you're really struggling with, to go deep instead of just talking about what kind of cupcake flavor you need to bring for the birthday party, or how many inches of rain you got last week.
That's right. What are you under the influence of?
Yes. And where could you be a little more intentional because you're a little, maybe a little careless right now and a little reckless with yourself and others. Thanks for joining us this week on The Sinner and the Saint.